I'm Rebekah Reysen, and welcome to the ChitChat. I'm here with Jeremy Roberts today, and we have a very special guest, Ms. Jackie Certion. We are excited to have you on the show, Jackie. Let us tell you a little bit about Jackie Certion. She's an amazing woman. She's the Assistant Director for the Fast Track program, and she serves as the primary guidance for the student's academic path. As a member of the Fast Track team, she understands and knows the importance of being a major support system for each and every student. My willingness to give, coupled with their desire to learn, has become my daily motivation. Please welcome to the show, Ms. Jackie Certion. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. One of the first questions we typically ask is, how did you get involved in higher education and academics?
Wow. So, like most students, you have this dream of what you want to do, and then you step foot on campus and you take that first class and you're like, yeah, maybe not so much. Mm-hmm. So prior to going to college, I always thought that I wanted to be a lawyer. Mm-hmm. So I started out as a political science major. And it wasn't until my junior year in college where I became an RA, and just having that interaction with students outside of, that interaction with students in the residence halls was very, very rewarding for me. But the pivotal moment in that was when I had a professor to tell me that it does not take intelligence to get a college degree, it takes perseverance. Because all through K through 12 and even, my first couple of years in college, my personality and who I was always attached to my grades. And so whenever I got a grade that I felt like wasn't, it reflected on me badly, not understanding that transition from high school to college is tough. I was a first generation student. I went to the University of Southern Mississippi, which is 4 hours away from home. So it was a lot. And it wasn't until Dr. Larry LaFleur, who was my criminal justice professor, told me, he was like, it doesn't take intelligence to get a college degree, it takes perseverance. And that resonated so much with me because I was like, that's true. So what if I get a C? So what if I wasn't successful in college algebra the first time? It doesn't negate my level of intelligence. It doesn't say that I'm less worthy of receiving a college degree. So it was most definitely my junior year when I decided that, I wanted to be the Larry LaFleur for other students. And so my work in working in student housing, which is where I really gained my holistic approach to student affairs, understanding that so much of what a student does inside of the classroom is determined on how well they acclimate to the things that go on outside of the classroom. And I learned that in student housing. So my junior year in college was when I knew that I wanted to work in higher ed.
Sure. So college, yeah, I think you make some good points here. College is very stressful. There's so many, parts of get acclimated to the university, whichever university it is. I was an out-of-state student, and so it's kind of the time where you get really just overwhelmed trying to adjust to everything. And academics in and of itself can be tricky even when life is going smoothly. So it sounds like you've really used those experiences to then give back to your students. Mm-hmm. So tell us about your role as Assistant Director of Fast Track, and Foundations for Academic Success Track is what that stands for, yes. As you know. What is your typical workday like, and has that really changed? Because I know we're in the pandemic right now, the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes. So my typical day, there is no typical day. There is no typical day. So prior COVID, we would say a typical day was, most definitely continuously interacting with students, whether it be advising, whether it be mentoring, whether it be, assisting students with finding the resources on campus that they needed to be successful in their classes. I also advise to student organizations. So I'm the advisor for the undergraduate chapter of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority, and I'm the advisor for Esteem, which is the largest student organization for young women of color. So serving as a mentor for those students is really, really important. So my typical day can be anything from attending meetings in the role of assistant director, working with campus partners, whether it be our academic partners, the Center for Writing and Rhetoric, the Department for Writing and Rhetoric, sociology department, psychology, history, sociology. So it could be meeting and communicating with them about the needs for our students in fast track. It could be mentoring, it could be academic advising. It's a little bit of everything. So I think because I have such a love for what I do, however my day comes, whatever comes, I'm ready for it because I absolutely love what I do. I absolutely love coming to work. I love interacting with the students. I love working with our campus partners, our stakeholders. So a typical day for me is just coming in and giving it 100% and hoping that throughout the course of my day, I've had some type of impact on the students, on my colleagues, on our campus partners, and just making a difference at the University of Mississippi.
So with Fast Track's a unique program where students take a lot of courses together. Could you break down Fast Track and tell us about the different areas and then what the students actually do in the program?
Yes. So Fast Track is we say it's a linked community. Mm-hmm. And so we say a linked course community. That basically means that students are placed in a cohort of 20. And in that cohort, they take some of the same classes together. So our EDHE 105, which is our freshman year experience class, and then our Writing 101, which is our first year writing class, those students take the same class together. And then based on their major, if they need sociology or if they need psychology, then they're also placed in those classes as well. So the whole premise and purpose behind the Fast Track program is to help students build a support system. Right. A lot of times students don't realize that they are their biggest advocates. They are their biggest support system. Sometimes when they transition from high school to college, they get so caught up in, and I hate to say get caught up in the academics because that's the importance of college. Right. But as I stated earlier, there's so many other things that come along with being a successful college student. So learning how to navigate your resources, learning how to build a certain skill set, whether it's time management, test taking, goal setting, learning how to build that skill set your freshman year so that when you transition to your sophomore and junior and senior year, it won't be as difficult. Now, I'm not saying that it won't be difficult because college is difficult, but because you built that certain skill set your freshman year, it's easier to navigate those upper years. And we like to say in the Fast Track program that we create a culture of care. And when we say we create a culture of care is that we create a family, we create an environment where students feel like that they're not just a student ID number, but they are an individual who they know that they have a support team that's going to help them navigate this new space. Our program is layered. So we have professional staff members who serve as academic mentors. And then we have a second layer where we actually have students who serve as leaders to help bridge that gap, because we know that there's a generational gap as well. Right. And so, sometimes students are more apt to listen to a student who's just been maybe 1 or 2 years removed from what they're going through now. Because we have such an amazing partnership throughout campus, with your office, with the MOST LLC, from the Center for the Department of Writing and Rhetoric to our history department. And because we have such a wonderful relationship, when we have students who are maybe having issues in those certain areas, we can almost serve as an advocate for our students, still teaching them how to utilize and begin to advocate for themselves. But we all know, being higher ed professionals, that can be somewhat not only uncomfortable, it can be scary, and it can be, not really a comfortable place for our freshmen. And so teaching them how to advocate for themselves, but advocate for themselves in a way that when they speak to their professors, when they speak to those staff members in certain offices, that it's said in a way that's going to be received in the proper way, so that when the message is given to them, that there's no breakdown in communication. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, well, and so according to your bio, you earned a bachelor's degree from Southern Miss, like we said before. We'd like to hear more about your master's experience too, being a master's student, what that process was like.
Okay, so I received my master's degree in counselor education, student personnel from Mississippi State University. And I will tell you that entire process was, I tell students, never put all your eggs in one basket. Mm-hmm. Because when I first started at the University of Southern Mississippi, I was in a major that I thought I wanted, but I didn't want. And so I wasn't as successful in that major as I could have been. And so I actually went back for a second degree in social and rehabilitation services. And I was very successful in that. But coupled with both degrees, when I finished at USM, I had a 2.99 GPA, which anyone who knows, getting into graduate school, that's not high enough. So I applied to graduate school at Southern Miss because I didn't want to leave, and I didn't get in. And then I appealed the process, and I still didn't get in. Mm-hmm. And so I had put all my eggs in one basket, and it wasn't until April of the year that I wanted to attend grad school that I applied to Mississippi State. And it was really based off connections that I made in housing. I knew people who in the housing department who knew people at Mississippi State in the housing department, and that's how I was able to get into graduate school. I got in on conditional status. And so going in, I really didn't know what to expect. I had to just kind of figure out my way as far as graduate assistantship. Long story short, I became the graduate assistant for the union. I ran the doghouse. Okay. It's a call. But, I found the silver lining in anything.
Yeah.
And so with that, it helped me to continue to build my my interaction with students, understanding that, once again, what I learned in housing, everything that happens in the classroom isn't determined by what happens in the classroom. It determines on what happens outside the classroom. So I did that program for 2 years, and it was an experience. Prior to going to Mississippi State, I had never visited the campus before. It was most definitely different than the University of Southern Mississippi. It was a different part of the state. It was really, I like to say that each sector of the state, there's a certain culture.
Right.
And so Southern Mississippi is nothing like Central Mississippi. It's nothing like North Mississippi. So just getting acclimated to the resources and things that I was afforded to do in graduate school, it was an experience. I will say the institution has grown tremendously since I left. But for all intents purposes, the program was amazing. Yeah. At the time, I did not know that program was the only accredited program in my area in the state at the time. So I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. Right. So I had some amazing professors. I had amazing experiences in that program. I was able to really build on my the counseling parts of what I do, because I was able to be in classes where I had the interaction with my classmates, but I also had the opportunity to counsel students, undergraduate students. And once again, that prepared me for the unofficial parts of my job.
Right.
You know, I'm not a certified counselor, but I counsel all day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so that helped me with that. So yeah, it was a great experience. It was a great experience. It was new, you know. USM, at the time, USM wasn't in a conference.
Mm-hmm.
I got to Mississippi State, it was an SEC conference.
Right.
And I do believe that was the year that the basketball team went to the Sweet 16 or the Final Four. So the campus was going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
No idea what was going on, because I'm like, I didn't experience that at USM.
Right.
And so it was different. It was different, but it was an experience that I enjoyed. But I think most what I take from that experience is, especially when I'm talking to juniors and seniors about, okay, so what are your postgraduate plans? And telling them that you need to have a plan. And I learned the hard way, never put all your eggs in one basket.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you do, if that bottom of that basket breaks, then all of your eggs are gone.
Right.
So learning to work sometimes outside of your comfort zone. And outside of your comfort zone, meaning that, you know, you may end up at a school or apply to a school that, you know, it may not be familiar to you. But I also learned in that process that outside of your comfort zone is where you grow the most.
Yeah. So aside from what you do as assistant director and what you just talked about, you also teach, or you have taught before. So do you use that same information as you were working with the students as well?
Yes. So I do teach. I teach the EDHE 101, and I've been teaching that. I think I started teaching that in 2003 when I became an academic advisor. And then I also teach the EDHE 105. So my teaching philosophy is I bring everything about me into the classroom. My wins, my losses, because a lot of times the date may change, but the circumstances are sometimes all the same.
Right.
And so as a student of color at a predominantly white institution in my undergraduate experience, as a graduate student of color at a predominantly white institution, and a single mother in my graduate experience, I can bring that to my that has become a part of my wheelhouse. Right. So I can bring that to my experiences, and not only to my students of color, but also to my non-students of color. Because I feel like college is the place where you have the opportunity to grow the most. College is the place where you have the opportunity to really determine and figure out who you are. Because a lot of times, when you are coming in from home, you're bringing a lot of the ideologies, a lot of the thought process, a lot of the ideas from home, because that's what you've been taught. That's how you've grown up. And it's not until you get into this place where you have, quote unquote, this freedom. Now we know there's no such thing. You don't have free time in college.
Right.
You come into this place where you have this freedom, and you begin to explore who you are. You begin to then interact with people who, if it were not for programs like Fast Track, where we have, you know, built-in diversity, if it were not for programs and classes like EDHE 105, where, you know, you have students from all over the United States and international students from different socioeconomic classes to ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender. It is in those places that I feel like students have the opportunity to just flourish and figure out who they are.
Yeah.
And that is then what they take into the world. Because the world is, I say it's a big old pot of gumbo.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so naturally, you may just gravitate to the okra, or you may gravitate to the andouille sausage, or you may gravitate to you know, whatever you have, the tomatoes or whatever you have. But when you're in college, you're in this big old pot. And so you're rubbing up against people and things that is not your comfort zone. But as I stated earlier, it's outside of that comfort zone that you grow. It's outside of that comfort zone that you begin to realize that, wow, so this, you know, so andouille sausage isn't so bad.
Right.
I won't have it every time I eat gumbo, but it doesn't taste so bad. So I may try it every once in a while. Or, oh, wow, I've always thought I hated okra. Okay, it's not so bad. So it's not something that I'll always have as a side dish, but when I have my gumbo, I'm gonna make sure I have okra inside my gumbo. And so to me, those are things, that's what college is all about. And so I bring that inside the classroom. I bring that in my advising appointments. I bring that into all the interactions that I have, because this is the place where you discover. Mm-hmm. It's college is such a place of discovery, and you just discover who you are, and you begin to embrace the newness of who you are. So you're not just growing chronologically, but you're growing mentally, you're growing intellectually, and that growth is what's going to create the leaders that run our country and run our world.
So talking about students, I mean, our program specifically works with students who struggle academically. So as you work with students throughout their progression here at the university, what are some things that you do for those that are struggling? It may be struggling with homesickness, it may be struggling with academics, but if a student comes to you, and this is something we usually ask a lot of our leaders in higher education, what advice do you give to them to help them get back on track?
So that's really a case-by-case basis.
Right.
I don't have a script that I use for students. So in getting to just, talk to the student, the first thing that I ask most students who are homesick or who are, tell me that, they're not feeling like they found their niche or their place. The first thing I ask is like, well, do you want to be here?
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of students that don't want to be here. And whether it's a family tradition, whether it was the only place I could afford, whether it was I was close to home, and so that's the first thing that I ask. And so if they say no, I'm like, okay, so where do you want to be? And if you want to go somewhere, what are you doing here? If you want to transfer, you need to transfer with decent grades. So what are you doing here to secure yourself so that your transition will be easier? Okay. But when they say, well, no, Miss Jackie, I like being here. I don't know. Well, then I start asking them questions about, okay, so what are the things that you like? Mm-hmm. What are your goals? What have you done this semester to create a sense of belonging? Because if you're homesick, but you haven't joined any student organizations, or you never leave your room, you only go to class, you use a little robot to bring you food to your dorm, and you never interact, then I tell them, well, how do you know what's out there if you don't take advantage of it?
Right.
So it's really a case-by-case basis. I use the analogy also of a hamburger. I have a lot of analogies. So I use the analogy of a hamburger. And I say, okay, the hamburger is your academics, okay? However, you can have condiments to make those hamburgers tasty. Now, the condiments are not necessary because you can have the burger with no bun, no lettuce, no tomato, because the hamburger is just, whether it's soy, Angus, vegan, whatever. That's the burger, that's the academics. And sometimes we have students, because the condiments at the University of Mississippi are amazing. Mm-hmm. Amazing. And so we have students who come and allow the condiments to overpower the burger.
Right.
And they have a hard time trying to dial it back. Mm-hmm. And when they've been told that, okay, this is your one shot, if you don't get it right, you got to come back home. Well, they left home for a reason. Not necessarily saying that they left their family for a reason, but I never applied to attend the University of Mississippi as a freshman. And I'm from Oxford.
Yeah.
I did that on purpose. I did not want to attend the University of Mississippi. I intentionally went far enough away, mm-hmm. but it wasn't too far that if something happened, my family couldn't come and get me.
Right.
So just asking those questions. And the thing is, Jeremy, to me, before you can ask those questions, you have to get to know the student. Mm-hmm. You have to get to know the individual. Right. And they have to trust you.
Right.
Because it's a lot of information that if I don't know you, I'm not going to share with you.
Right.
So as higher ed professionals, I cannot encourage, my colleagues enough to get to know your students, get to know them as individuals, because it's at that point when you begin to get to know them that it's like an onion. Those layers begin to shed away. And sometimes I think as people, what we don't understand is those layers are on the onion for a reason. They're protective. There's a reason why there's a peel on an orange. There's a reason why that, it's protected.
Right.
And so in order to peel those things away, you have to let the student know that, you can trust me. And this generation, they listen, they look at more of what you do than actually what you say.
Right.
So if your actions do not line up with the things that you're saying, they will sit in an office with you and they'll sit in a conversation with you and they'll be like, mm-hmm, yes, mm-hmm, uh-huh. And it'll go in one ear and come out the other, because authenticity is so, so important. Right. And if you're not authentic, then, you just sat there for 30 minutes and had what you thought was this in-depth conversation. And it did absolutely nothing for the student because you're not being authentic.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I'm hearing a lot of themes of advocacy, yes. Like you're advocating for your students. You're also teaching them how to advocate for themselves, mm-hmm. and informing other people too, how they can be advocates for students and for themselves. And you've actually won some prestigious awards, and very exciting. Yes. And you have a lot to be proud of for all your hard work, for sure. You've received the 2019 Northeast District Harriet Tubman Award and the University of Mississippi's Black Student Union's Guiding Light Award, and mm-hmm. other awards, I'm sure, too. So tell us about your approach to student advocacy.
So my approach is, I'm afforded the opportunity to sit at tables mm-hmm. that sometimes students are not. And so once students I've built that relationship with students, and, things have been voiced to me that are concerns, and they may feel like, well, Ms. Jackie, I don't know who I can talk to. I don't know who I can tell this to. And so if I am then in a place of power where I can voice their opinions mm-hmm. and voice their concerns, then I do that, because I feel like that's one of my unwritten roles as a staff member at the university. Because once again, they're coming into a setting, they're coming into a new environment, and it's different. We're expecting 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds to know it all.
Right.
And they don't. At 48, I don't know it all. And we're expecting them to know it all, and we're expecting them to be able to do all the things while still life is still happening. You can't put a pause on life while you're in college. You just can't. You can't, okay, life, I'm in college. I'm pausing you for 4 years, 5 at the most. Give me 5. And I'm going to hit the pause button, and then I want you to start again. It doesn't happen like that. And so if I can be that voice for them in those spaces where either they're not invited, mm-hmm. or those spaces where maybe they've been given the invitation, but when they get to the room, the energy is not right. Mm-hmm. They don't feel like, okay, I'm in the room, but if I say this, it's gonna go a certain way. And so I feel like that's my place, because I'm invited into the space to be the voice for those who sometimes feel like they are voiceless. Mm-hmm. Yes, being an advocate for students is most definitely high up on my priority list.
Yeah. And community service is also something that you're very involved in as well. Was that something that you started when you were at Southern? Or I know working with housing, I worked with housing whenever I was a student here. We were involved in some community service too. Mm-hmm. So how did you get involved with all that you do for the community outside of the university?
So I'll actually say that started in high school.
Okay.
In high school, I was very involved. I was that student that probably needed the hamburger analogy her first year, because I was president of my student body. I was in a lot of student organizations. And so that was just what I knew. Mm-hmm. I'm a strong advocate of the African proverb that it takes a village. Mm-hmm. And I know that my village is how I got to where I am now. The support, the things that different people in the community, instilled in me. So that was really, really how I got started. And so when I got to college, like you said, housing, I became the programming guru. Mm-hmm. And then I joined my sorority. My senior year in college. So I became a member of Sigma Gamma Rho my senior year in college, and being a part of an organization where community service, literally our motto is greater service, greater progress. And so being a part of my sorority where community service is just a second layer of skin, mm-hmm. then it just really propelled. And so literally when people ask me, so like, what do you do in your downtime? Like, what's your greatest hobby? I was like, community service. Mm-hmm. Like, I absolutely love giving back. I'm that person that will give a gift and I don't have to receive a gift, but I get excited when I see someone open a gift. Right. That's me. And so, so it started in high school. Okay. It increased in college, and now it's just become a part of who I am, giving back, because once again, that the village has to be strong in order for the villagers to be successful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm imagining, just hearing all the different activities you do on a regular basis. You've got work, you've got community service, you advocate in your job and also outside of your job. So in your spare time, which I'm imagining you probably don't have a whole lot of, but nonetheless, I know family is also a very important aspect of your life too. So, tell us about, what that process is like. Do you have, advice maybe for parents who are raising children, and then also mm-hmm. parents who have their children at university going through through college?
So for me, and I'll show you what gets me through everything, my planner,
Mm-hmm.
everything. And so having the mother of 3 sons, one just finished high school, one just finished college. Our oldest son lives in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And so when they were in school, they were very active in student, in sports.
Mm-hmm.
And my planner is what kept me. I was actually writing in my planner the other day, and my husband said, he's like, if you didn't have that thing, you would know what to do. Because literally, I write everything in my planner, okay? But I will say for the mom, life, the professional, balance. Balance is the key. Making sure that you do take time out for yourself. So my self-care is audibles. Like, I love audibles. I will, like, literally, if I can carve out a couple of hours in the day, I will lay on the couch all day and just listen to a book. So audibles, but for that professional, for that mom, that wife, that professional that's trying to figure out, like, how do I be all things? First of all, you can never be all things, and that's okay. Because I think society has, especially women, especially professionals, has told us that, you have to be this, and this. And when you don't meet one of those marks, then, there's a deficiency. And there's not a deficiency, because I tell this to my sons, and this is a mantra that I use for myself. I am my only competition. Mm-hmm. I'm not competing with Dr. Reysen and how great of a mom she is with, her girls. I'm not competing with my coworkers. I am my only competition. And my success is going to look like what I said success is. So that's the first thing that I would do, is don't hold yourself in comparison to someone else. I've had quite a few sorority sisters that tell me, I just don't know how you do all this. And I was like, I just carve it out. Right. But things may take different levels of priority at different times in my life. If I have something big coming up with the sorority, I've been in my sorority for now 24 years. My oldest child is 23. Mm-hmm. So, my middle child is 23. So I've been married, the 22nd of this month will be 20 years. So my sorority has been a part of my husband's life as long as we've been together. It's been a part of my middle and my youngest sons. So that's something that they've always seen. And so they know that there are certain times of the year where, we really can't talk to mom just a whole lot, because she's doing this and she's doing that. They know, my church family, they know that June, that's orientation for Jackie. And so we can't ask her to do a whole lot, because ever since she's been a member of our church, she's been working orientation in the month of June. So it's just that also, I think also having those that are in my immediate circle understand what's important to me. So for my sorority sisters, because I'm currently the state director for Sigma Gamma Rho. Wow. And so my sorors, because they know that I have a family, they're not just calling on me in the middle of the night. Mm-hmm. My undergraduate sorors, I've been grad advisor for the Xi Zeta chapter for about since 2001. I took a break 1 year. So they understand that, Miss Jackie's at home with her family. So unless it's a dire emergency, we're not just texting her in the middle of the night, or we're not just calling her in the middle of the night. So I think also, when you have all of these things that you're doing, making sure that every player, everybody that's involved, they have a mutual respect they have a mutual respect for you. They have a mutual respect for the work that you do. And they have a mutual respect for every part of every piece of your puzzle. Right. And so that's how I've been successful. Now, I can't speak to, like I said, I can't speak to other women, but that's how I've been successful. And then a part of your question was also speaking as, for someone who has a student, University of Mississippi. And I will tell anyone, Zach's freshman year was the hardest time in my life. There were so many times I cried because as a higher ed professional, you see the red marks, like you see the red flags. Yeah. But as his mom, there are some days where he actually told me, he's like, I just need you, because he was a part of Fast Track. He's like, I just need you being my mom today. I don't need you being my academic advisor. And so being able to understand that he was like every other student, trying to figure some stuff out. He was trying to figure out who he was in this place where he just wanted to be Zach, but he was Jackie Certon's son. Mm-hmm. He just wanted to be Zach, and he had other people telling him how great his mom was, but his mom had just went off on him at the house, and he didn't think his mom was that great. He's like, y'all don't know her like I know her. But so as a parent, giving them that space, and that's the scary part, giving them that space to grow. Because Zach also helped me. He said, if you don't allow me to fall, I won't know how to get up on my own. And that was a hard pill to swallow, but it helped me so much. It helped me so much. And now he's graduated. He just got a job with C Spire. And, so now it's like I can see everything coming together. Whereas his freshman year, it looked like a hot mess. And so I say that is, you have to trust the process. As a parent, you have to remember the morals and values that you instilled in your child. And you have to give them that space to grow into who they're supposed to be. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Definitely.
Well, and now we have a lightning round of questions that we like to surprise. Yes, surprise.
Okay.
And these are questions to get to know you as a college student yourself. So I think we touched upon this a little bit earlier.
Okay.
But paint us a picture about what your day-to-day year was like your freshman year. Like I know we talked kind of big picture, but like day-to-day, I mean, what does a typical day look like?
Freshman year, I was myself a hot mess. So freshman year, as I stated, I thought I wanted to be a political science major. I got a D in Political Science 101, my first semester. I got a D in college algebra, my first semester. Very, very much homesick. I tried to do the student government thing. It's totally different from high school student council, by the way. Senate government is totally different than high school government, totally different. So I, got to know a little small group, but I will say that the homesickness was a lot because, as I stated, I was 4 hours away. I cried a lot. It did help that my mom and my sister told me that they would only come get me on holidays. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like, figure it out. And the thing why it was important for me to figure it out is because I know that I did not want to come back to Oxford. And that's one thing that I ask students. I was like, okay, if this doesn't work, what's your plan? Because you got to have a plan. You got to have a plan. So yeah, that was my freshman year. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Little House on the Prairie. Do you know Little House on the Prairie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the people on my hall used to call me Laura Ingalls because I used to wear my hair in 2 French braids, and I had this dress that I thought was the cutest thing ever. Apparently it wasn't. And it was like paisley. And so they coined me Laura Ingalls. Yeah. And it's so funny that you know who Laura Ingalls is, because whenever I talk about that in my EDHE 105 class, they was like, who?
Yeah.
And like, I'll tell them, I was like, so I want to be a lawyer like Perry Mason. They was like, who? And I was like, oh my God, whatever. So yeah, that was my freshman year.
So thinking of your career path, who is someone that you value as a mentor, and what advice did they give you to get you to where you are now?
So I'll most definitely say Dr. Don Cole.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Cole, Dr. Larry LaFleur, because even though Dr. LaFleur wasn't in student affairs, Dr. LaFleur was that first person to say, yeah, but you don't have to get A's in everything to get a college degree. I would say there's a lady, I cannot think of her last name, but there's a lady named Miss Penny that was in the financial aid office at Southern. Being a first generation student, I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to fill my FAFSA out before June of the summer that I wanted to go. I didn't know that. So I filled it out in June. And when I got to USM, my financial aid had not processed. I get a message from the bursar's office saying that if you can't pay this in 2 weeks, you got to go home. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to go home. And so, Miss Penny, she processed some stuff, and she told me, she's like, now, if this money doesn't show up, you're going to have to pay it. And I said, Miss Penny, it's going to show up because my mom doesn't have any money. So I know it's going to show up. So I'll say Miss Penny, I'll say Dr. LaFleur and Dr. Cole. At the University of Mississippi, I'm going to say Dr. Jeff Jackson, because his energy is just always so positive. Mm-hmm. Jackson is one of our partners with sociology, and he cares about the student. And I think sometimes in the world of academics, professors get they get hit a lot. They get the short end of the stick sometimes. Yeah. And Dr. Jackson is he's just that person that it's obvious that he cares. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to give one more who's also in academics, Michael Barnett. Okay. Michael Barnett is the chair of the theater arts department. Mm-hmm. And when I tell you the partnership, and to him, it may not even be a partnership, but the way he works with me to ensure that all of the theater majors have everything that they need as far as theater, and he allows fast track the space to make sure that they take our classes too. And I think I never knew how important that was until this summer. Yeah. When I was having to put classes in before students even got here. And Professor Barnett, his communication was absolutely great. I'll give one more, Patricia Treelor. And I say Miss Treelor because of the student population that she works with. Right. That student population oftentimes is deemed not intelligent enough to get a college degree based on a standardized test. And I myself do not test well on standardized tests. And so when I'm talking to students about DS-99, I was like, that was me. And I have 3 college degrees. Mm-hmm. And so to be able to work with that student population, you know, speak into them, because when everybody around you are taking courses that are going to go toward their major, and you're having to take courses as prerequisites, you know, it's oftentimes, it can be disheartening. And sometimes the narrative that the community speaks about those particular classes, it's not always positive. And so instilling that light in those students is really, really important. So yeah, mm-hmm. those would be my picks.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to add in terms of just life in general, final tips of wisdom, advice?
I'll just say, you know, in this pandemic, in this global pandemic, I would encourage everyone to find something that brings them light. Because everything can seem so dark and so gloomy right now, but there is light. There's light for me, there's light in reading my audibles and listening to my audibles. There's light in sunflowers. I love sunflowers. There's light in whipped fragrance body butter. I love it. You know? So finding that light is so important, because we're not going to always be in this space. We're not going to always be in the things that are going on now. And so what I don't want for people, and I know it can be really hard. I know it's hard for some people to find that light, but I don't want you to look back on this time and it's like, you know, it was a blur. Mm-hmm. So whether, you know, finding a support group, doing those things that bring you peace. I am a strong advocate of energy. I don't like sharing my energy with people who don't share the same energy with me. Mm-hmm. And as college students, you know, you're figuring that out, because you're figuring out who you are. You're at the same time, you're trying to figure out, you know, are these people that I'm hanging with, are they worthy of my time? Are they worthy of my energy? So it's a lot. For parents, I would say the same thing, because parents, especially freshman parents, 2020 is its own adjective. Okay. So while keeping their students encouraged, finding those things that keep them encouraged as well. And then I'll say this: utilize all of your resources, because there are resources out there for literally any and everything. And if you feel the need, if something crosses your mind and it says, okay, I need that, then take that as a sign of, you need to reach out to someone. You need to reach out and do this. You need to reach out and do that. So I'm a strong advocate for self-care. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I'll say.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
I've so enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, we appreciate all of the work that you do on campus and in the community. It's very important, and you're an inspiration for not only your students, but for people who know you. So thank you so much for all of your hard work and being the fantastic person that you are.
Well, thank you.
Yes. So thanks for joining us. And you can find us on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, all those social media cool dealios. And we're now on Spotify. So for those of you who are tuning in, feel free to check us out again next week, and we will see you again soon. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Bye.